freaking first cut. Golly.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the First Cut podcast. It is First Cut After Dark. We've been waiting all day for Sunday night. We got Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, on my screen to the left, but to my right, I have two Mr. Unlimiteds, some could say. I'll start with Mr. Greg DuCharme. Greg, how's your weekend going?
It's going great. Haven't had to watch the Jets play yet. So I guess that's coming after, but maybe we run a little long here and I don't have to catch too much of it. I know we're playing the Steelers tonight. I know you're not very excited about it, Patrick, but we'll see. It should be some kind of shootout tonight, but the golf today was great. I really enjoyed watching it. The Shriners was awesome. I cannot believe how fast those fairways were. So I had a pleasure watching that event today.
And we are joined by, I guess, a celebrity guest in Mark Immelman, someone we haven't seen in, oh gosh, since his birthday, I think. Mark, how you been, brother?
I'm a year older. Celebrity picker. Hey, you guys, Devontae Adams is catching balls from Aaron Rodgers, and he's on my fantasy team, so I'm hoping the Jets go well tonight.
Okay. How's your team looking so far this year, Mark?
We're leading the league, me and a couple other guys. But my Falcons went down today, so I'm kind of in a bad mood. Sorry. Yeah.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Fair.
Someone who's not going to be in a bad mood after today's performance is Michael Ghim, talking about the Shriners Children's Open there. Kind of the early mover, the big mover. He lamented a little bit after the Black Desert Championship. He posted on social media that he was a little nervous about the top 125 cutoff, entered the week outside of it, was on that bubble, was on the fringe of contention. And then today, Mark, Michael Ghim, Twitter sensation, goes berserk, almost ties the course record. He ties his low on the PGA Tour with a 9 under 62. And he gets all the way up to T5, not quite solidifies his spot in the top 125, but he's inside it now and looks really good to keep that full-time status.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I didn't get to see the early coverage, but I looked at the scores before I watched, the latter portion of the day here this evening. And Michael Ghim was he was a strange character, honestly, to me, because at last week's event, the Black Desert Championship, when we were on the call there, he was one of the groups we had, and he looked like he was swinging well, driving the ball a long, long way. But just every so often, he'd have this wicked left ball off the tee, and he drove it in the lava a few times, kind of got away with things. And all of a sudden, the guy to me who looked like he was doing everything he should, turns out missing the cut. Now, the last few weeks, you've had Jackson, Mississippi with the Sanderson Farms event, and you had last week's in Utah where the scoring was kind of like 5-6 under par cuts, both times. And so you can play pretty solid and miss the cut. So I can understand why he was sort of a bit concerned, especially if you're battling a bit of a bulky driver. But around this place, I know the conditions were horrid over the first few days with the winds and such. It gives you a little bit of room to drive the ball. And I guess because, look, he had some long tee shots there when we had him last week. And he's picked up some speed off the tee. So I figured things were kind of imminent. Then all of a sudden you get this. And honestly, to me, it's just sort of indicative of who these guys are. They just need one little spark, one swing thought, one feel, whatever it might be. And then they can go bananas like he did. So good for him because he's a heck of a player. I feel like for the star he was in college, in comparison to the other guys, he might have underachieved a little bit. If you can say winning on the PGA Tour one time is underachieving, but he's on the right track. I really feel like that. And maybe this could be kind of that round that just kicks him over the edge now for a big run to close this fall and then head into, next season. Because next season, the first few events, he's very comfy. He grew up just down the way from Torrey Pines. So maybe this could be it that sets him on his way.
Yep. Entered the week 129, a few spots outside that top 125. He moves all the way up to 112. It looked like he was going to be even higher, but obviously as more and more birdies came in towards the end of the day, that position got lower and lower. 10 birdies across the day, the 5 on each side. Missed one on 18 from about 8 feet underneath the hole. But all in all, a terrific day for Michael Ghim. Outside that, you guys want to move to the final trio?
Sure.
Felt like those were the guys kind of duking it out most of the day. We had two guys. Mark brought up the wind in Las Vegas, Greg. 2 out of the 3 came from the bad wave. Kurt Kitayama and Doug Ghim both out of the bad wave, trying to catch the Postman, JT Poston. And early on, Greg, after the first 4 holes, Poston added a couple birdies. It felt like this was just going to be a stress-free, run-of-the-mill cruise to victory for JT Poston. But as we saw kind of around the turn and towards the end there, it was anything but that.
It was anything but that. Now, Kurt Kitayama kind of shot himself out of it with a couple of birdies early in that back 9. He was at 17 under at the turn, making a good move, makes bogey at 10, and then hits it in the penalty area and makes double at 12, which ended his chances. But for Doug Ghim, he really got off to a great start. He's 1 under through 3. He's hanging in there tough. He was an overnight leader, and JT Poston made a couple birdies when he finished out his 3rd round this morning. But he was the overnight leader. And then, so he goes out in 31 with a nice eagle on 9. He gets to 19 under, and he's right there. And it looks like it's going to be a 2-horse race. But ultimately, it's a couple of short missed putts from Doug Ghim that really cost him his chances. He missed a short one he could have made at 6, missed a short one at 11 that was really a disappointing putt because it was kind of a little downhill, and he left it short right in the middle from about 7 feet. And then he missed another one at 14 after Poston hits it into the middle of the green. Kitayama hits it into the middle of the green to back right hole location up on a shelf. And Doug Ghim stuffs one in there, in that 6-foot range, and has an opportunity to get right back in the tournament and misses. And, you look at a guy that loses by 1 and you have 3 misses from 7 feet. That is, those are easy ones to count. The old, but I should have shot 79 kind of thing. That's what it very easily turns into. And Doug Ghim can leave this tournament feeling like he did everything he needed to do to win. Just didn't close it off. He didn't close the deal on his short putts. And look, Doug Ghim has never finished runner-up in a tournament before. So it's his best finish ever on the PGA Tour. But there's definitely some disappointment today.
You talk of Doug Ghim, and Patrick, he's kind of the curious case of Benjamin Button to me, because this is a guy who was a star as an amateur, was awesome in college down at Texas. And he doesn't have the firepower of most on the PGA Tour, but he's so accurate, and he's a proven winner. And here's a guy who still hasn't won on the PGA Tour, and it's so crazy because if you look at college careers, and you have Doug Ghim and you have JT Poston, and you're like, all right, who's going to win the most? I guarantee you, all and sundry would have picked Ghim just looking at the resume. So it's weird. And you talk about events maybe that kick him over the edge. To your point, Greg, maybe this might be it, because you well know there's nothing like playing under pressure. And it just feels different, man. And now he's been in the last group. He missed those few short putts. And now if he's honest with himself after, you've had a bit of a decompress, he can kind of go, well, okay, I know what I was feeling. And if I'm really honest with myself, this may be where I misstepped mentally, or misstepped in my routine, or maybe there's something technical I need to work on. So maybe this could be that time where he goes, all right, I've got all the tools. I still need to sharpen up here. But the confidence should be high. And I'm looking forward to how he closes off the season.
Yeah, Doug Ghim's, he finished runner-up there at the USAM at Riviera, I believe, to Doc Redmond. Which was a great event. And I know the early portion of that back 9, a lot of missed opportunities, the par 5 13th as well, after driving it in the fairway bunker, not taking advantage of that hole. But you look at the golf shots he hit, those final 3 holes, 1 over the water into 16 was a solid shot. 17, the par putt he had to make just to, put a little pressure on Poston, was a great putt. And then the approach and putt there on 18, as you mentioned, Greg, there's a lot he can take away from this, right?
Oh yeah.
He knows he doesn't have to play perfect in the final round to win on the PGA Tour, and he was only 1 stroke behind. And Mark, you mentioned in our group chat, I kind of want to dive into the approach shot into 18, because I'll set the scene here. it looks like JT Poston is going to coast after taking advantage of that middle portion of the back nine like he has all week. And then he misses a 6-footer there on 16. He misses a 3-footer there on 17. And all of a sudden, it's just a 2-shot ball game on 18, both guys in the fairway. And you mentioned how difficult that shot can be uphill and with the sun in your face, if you want to expand on that a little bit too.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to have called this event a bunch when I was doing radio back in the day. And, I was there for when Patrick Cantlay won and when Bryson DeChambeau, before he became Beefy Bryson, won. When he professed to the world that I'm about to change and when you see me again, I'm going to be a different dude. So, and so I've been on hand there, and the way the golf course sets up, it's actually a really cool place. First off, just the close of the golf course, you got 10, which is kind of a shortish 4, and then 11's a difficult 4. 12 is very difficult with water, always crosswind. But then you've got a par 5, a short 3, a drivable 4, another reachable 5, and then 17, which is brutal. So you see a lot of changing in momentum. And then 18, you stand back on the tee, and you're always playing back into the setting sun. And you know kind of where the barranca and the canyon are. And it's easy to blow one out to the right-hand side, but that makes the approach shot very difficult. So when JT got one in the fairway, I'm like, okay, that's going to be pretty good. But the ball didn't scoot on down there, because if you can get one tumbling, it's going to go a long way and you can get a wedge and you can play some offense. But when you're playing back into the setting sun, the green's always in shadow for the stands in behind there, and there's water short and left. If you've got a lead, it's so easy just to kind of safety one out to the right-hand side, 40, 50 feet, and take 2 putts and go. And there's more often than not, I'd been on that hole there with either the guy who was in second or leading, where the guy with the lead sort of just peels one out there safely on the surface. The guy who's playing offense goes, oh, nothing to lose now, and he stuffs one in there and then makes birdie. So we nearly saw the same thing, and that would have sucked for JT. But it's one of those things, I guess, where if you're just looking at statistics, the hole seems like a giveaway, but just the way it plays, and if you've got the lead, it's so easy to play kind of too safe, like JT might have done. And it nearly cost him in the end, but thankfully for him, it worked out.
It did. And someone who did not play safe was Doug. That birdie on the last gets him the solo second. He moves up to number 70 in the FedEx Cup. So about 10 spots outside of the Aon next 10 for the signature events. I would get him into Pebble Beach and the aforementioned Riviera. But a guy already in those events, Greg, is our champion, JT, Justin Thomas Poston. Is that his name?
He's James Tyree.
Tyree. I knew it was something kind of nuts, kind of out there.
Justin Thomas.
We talked about that on the show. We were convinced there's a very good chance it's Thomas, but it's not. It's Tyree.
Yes,
James
David Tyree Poston. He, as we mentioned, it looked like it was going to be a pretty stress-free day for him. And then number 9 happens. And you have Kitayama throw a dart in there for Eagle. He misses his chance. Ghim throws a dart in there with his second. Poston's kind of slapping it around after missing the fairway. Compounds his mistake. He gets it back in the fairway, but then misses the green with a wedge in hand. And that 4-stroke lead that he had for the first third of this round, Greg, he's making the turn, and it's down to 1, and it's ball games on all of a sudden.
Yes, things were kind of tightening up, and there's a avenue for him, because early this morning he goes out and he's at 15 under, right, tied with Doug Ghim, finishing his third round. He's at 15 under. He's got to play 14 in, and he makes 3 birdies in those last 5 holes, and he gets to 18 under, which is huge. Then he birdies 1 and 4, and he's at 20 under, and things are looking really good. Now you can play fairway green golf. You don't have to be overly aggressive. You got the middle portion of the back 9 where you can make birdies without being aggressive. Just hitting some good golf shots, you're going to put circles on the card. So this is a great place to be. But all of a sudden, he misses a couple greens. There were a couple tee shots that he didn't hit great. He scrambled really nicely, hit a couple of really nice pitch shots, the one on 9 included. because if he made bogey there, things would have gone really fast for him. But he makes the turn, and then all of a sudden he gets himself a nice little putt on 12 from about 20 feet or so under the hole and drips it right in the middle. And that was vintage JT Poston. It's exactly the kind of putt you expect him to make. And now he's in the stretch where you can really make birdies. 12 is not one of those holes where you make the gimme birdies, but 13, 14 was a tough hole location, but 13, 14, 15, 16, that stretch you expect to play 3 under par at the very least. And he plays them 2 under, and that was enough to really secure the victory. Now, he did make a mistake on 17, missed a short one on 16 and 17, but what he did with the birdies at 13 and 15, that should have been enough to cruise. And he used all of that. It was enough to cruise. But he used the total size of the hole, if you will.
Yeah, just barely enough to cruise. Mark, I want to ask you about Poston. He's someone who's always been fairly interesting to me, just given his upside on the greens, and he's improved from tee to green these past few years. They mentioned on the broadcast that he's been adding some beef, right? He's 10 pounds heavier, trying to get some muscle, trying to get a little more distance out of his game as well. What is JT Poston's, I don't want to say ceiling, but could he become like next year's Russell Henley, perhaps, where he surprises some people and threatens for a Ryder Cup team, something like that? I'm very interested in what the outlook of his career could be, just given how good he is on the greens.
I think comparing him to Henley is a really good comp. I will say this. He's a really hard worker, and he's almost got, unlike Henley, if we're making the comparison, Russ was a blue chip amateur. He was a star at Georgia, won a bunch of big amateur events. You kind of knew he was going to be good. Where JT, Hickory, North Carolina, went to Western Carolina, wasn't blowing your hair back in college, but you could see him, he was talented and grew up playing a Donald Ross golf course. So that the skill, the touch, the feel around the greens, because you never have a level spot around there, was always part of the arsenal. But he has gotten stronger, and he is sneaky long off the tee as well, because he just hits it so squarely. And if you watch the ball flights, the eye test, as you know, Patrick, it doesn't deviate through the air very much. He just hits it so squarely. And so I don't know what the numbers and how they bear out are, but as far as I've seen, I feel like he's really accurate. He's sneaky long. And of course, around the greens, he's got wonderful touch, but on the greens is where he sort of excels. But the strange thing is, statistically, he's a great putter, but all of a sudden, he'll just miss 1 or 2 incomprehensible sort of putts. And then that's why he doesn't win. Because if you watch the putting technique, and I've got videos of this stuff, I'm fascinated because it's like he's not handcuffed by technique. When he goes on a practice putting green, you see guys out there with lines and mirrors and training aids and stuff. He lobs a few balls on the green and just sort of rolls them like he's about to go out and play the Friday morning Nassau with the boys. And in many sort of ways, I can see a comparison to Ben Crenshaw in the shape of the stroke and the way he stands to it and kind of how he hooks putts a little bit. But every so often when he's off, because of that shape of the stroke, he sort of blocks 1 or 2 like we saw coming down the stretch. So, look, he's wonderful on the greens, but the one bugaboo is that all of a sudden he'll miss a 5-footer, and you're like, where'd that come from? But then when he has to make one, he's got the stuff, to step up like he did on 18 and make it. And look, you got to be no slouch to win 3 times on tour. So I feel like that Henley comp is a good one. And maybe this could be the thing that he breaks through, because everyone kind of knows he's good. And I feel like he's believing that he's good now too.
Yeah. And I love when kind of like the Max Homa, Tony Finau, almost a Wyndham Clark type. I'm becoming more into the players who kind of find it a little bit later. Like, there's so many phenoms these days. All the young guys are great, but when like the guys who just turned 30 and then they flip the switch, that's the stuff I'm loving these days.
I feel like you talk about a Ryder Cup. If you dress JT Poston in red, white, and blue, he will become a giant killer, because he's got that stuff about him. He's from the North Carolina mountains. He's patriotic. He's up for it. He's like, dress me, I'll go and battle for you. And I get that sense because he's sort of softly spoken, but he swings a big stick. And so I like where you're going. I think I'm jumping on your train.
Wow.
I would be very curious to see how the year plays out when he gets to some of these bigger golf courses that we play on the PGA Tour. One thing that Rick and I talked about on Monday, on a venue like this, you end up with a lot of short irons, a lot of wedges into these massive greens. And that's exactly what JT Poston excels in. So I'm curious, how does the distance, you're talking about Bethpage Black when you're talking about the Ryder Cup, right? How much distance is he able to gain? And does it help him improve with some of these longer range iron proximity buckets? Because he's very good with his wedges, but statistically, relative to the other PGA Tour players, outside of 150 yards, he's not as good as many of he's not as good as Russell Henley. We'll say that.
Yep.
Well, I kind of see where you're going. I'm looking through some of the results here, and he makes hay on places like Hilton Harbour Town and those sorts of courses. I see here bar 76 in the final round at the Memorial. That's long, and you've got to hit good iron shots in there. And so it looks like it's there, but that's a pretty good call that you made there. But I will say this, the power off the tee is notable when he hits it with a driver. So maybe now the addition of some extra speed gets him a few more sort of shorter irons in there, and that might be sort of a harbinger to success.
It definitely could. How much speed are we talking about here? He's like averaging 291. He averaged 291 last year on the PGA Tour. This week he averaged like 308. But I mean, you're hitting into runways.
Yeah.
So how much of it's speed? How much of it's seriously? He must have had like 75 yards of roll on a couple of those.
They're insane.
But that's the thing. It's a sneaky 291 because of he hits this ball that doesn't spin very much through the air. He's very well fitted to his driver. And so when he's got the right conditions, they go a long, long way.
Right.
So maybe he doesn't have, you see, because for me, distance, if you're just looking at the numbers, it's kind of comparing apples and oranges because the really long guys, like the Rorys and company, on these holes where you can just take it over the tops of corners, that's where they got the big advantage. Now, I don't know how much farther he's carrying the thing, but when he gets the right conditions, they do go a long ways because I've had him in groups where he's been alongside big hitters and he's up there with them, but the ball gets there differently.
That's sneaky long.
Sneaky long. All right, just to generalize Greg's approach play topic point, Poston's about 90th percentile when it comes to his wedges. Mid irons and long irons, he drops to about 60th percentile on the PGA Tour. So definitely room for improvement there. And I think the Ryder Cup, it would be a great goal for him. Probably a stretch right now because I'm looking at his major record. He's in the Masters again for the third straight year because of this win, PGA Championship as well. Best finish is T30, last year's Masters. So
but look early. Earlier this year, he came out flying early. He had a bunch of top fives, and it looked like he might, kind of be the thing. And then all of a sudden, there was a little loss of form. Now he's in the first two signature events, so maybe he gets out with the same sort of thing. Now we're prognosticating, but I feel like again, I'm buying what you're selling there, where he could be an interesting guy to don the uniform in September.
One other thing on that with you're looking at major record, Patrick. Signature events are a big deal too, and they're not all big major type golf courses. You got Pebble Beach, which is a lot of short irons, a lot of really small greens, could play right into his hands. You got Harbour Town, and you got Travelers, which could play right into his hands as well. They're not playing at Quail Hollow this year.
No, PGA is there.
I know that's a big time golf course, but
it's going to the Philly Cricket Club for Wells Fargo.
Mm-hmm.
Is this still Wells Fargo?
No,
Truist.
Okay.
Yeah, but I guess the point is there are plenty of golf courses where he picks off a couple of wins in a signature event, and you get a lot harder to leave off the team.
Yeah,
I'm going with, for the record, I'm going with him in one and done at the American Express. Book it.
Okay, fair enough. I'm looking at his
Great
record
play.
from last year. So he is in all the signature events this upcoming year because he finished top 50 in the FedEx Cup. And he started in the signature events last year. T5 at the Century, T20 at Pebble Beach, 54 holes, and then T10 at Riviera. So
Yeah,
some comfort level there.
Kapalua, even though it's big, there's so much roll. So that's a wedge
runways, actual runways.
Well, again, it speaks to the ball flight, Greg, because the wind is howling there half the time, and he hits a ball that cuts through the wind.
Right. So he's not affected, and he gets wedges in, dial it in. What was the other one, Patrick?
T20 at Pebble and T10 at Riviera.
Riviera, I know we think about that being a ball striker's golf course, but a lot of my research says it really is a short game kind of golf course, which he excelled in.
And stuff. Yeah. Huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's because you miss so many greens there. Everybody does. Even Hideki last year made like 6 birdies with short game in that final round, or 4 birdies with short game, something like that. Anyway, it'd be interesting to see.
Yep, it will be. Josh is telling me to get to a break. So we're going to touch on our best bets, unfortunately, get to the one and done, and then we'll wrap it up. And hopefully by then the Steelers will have beaten the Jets and we'll be done for the night. So we'll get to all that after a quick word from one of our partners.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
And we are back. Josh, bring up the betting board. Just do it.
Good thing you guys weren't in Vegas with this lot. Jeez.
It's actually something after you go, Patrick, something incredible happened that I don't think I've ever done before or seen before with my bets for the week. Okay. But I digress. Go ahead.
I'm excited to hear about it. So the one winning bet, that's never a good way to start, is Rick hit his 3-ball JJ Spawn of the Dead plus 170 over Andrew Putnam and Eric Van Rooyen. Josh somehow has this as a draw. Cam Davis minus 105 over Matt McCarty. I appreciate it, but I'm pretty sure Cam Davis finished in dead last.
Yeah.
And then maybe this one is a draw. Steven Yeager minus 110 over Tom Hoagie. Greg, if you want to take it away from here.
So Steven Yeager missed the cut. Tom Hoagie missed the cut. My finishing position, I had Brendan Todd. He missed the cut. My outrights, I had Tom Kim. He missed the cut. Cam Davis missed the cut. In the best bets, which we haven't gotten to yet, I missed the cut. And in my one and done, I missed the cut. Every player that I put on this grid, even the loser of the matchup that I picked, missed the cut. Not a single player on my betting board played the final 2 rounds at the Shriners. I mean, it's pathetic.
But they made the weekend. They made the weekend, though, at least.
There you go, Mark. I think what's hilarious
final 2 rounds
is on Tuesday, we were literally talking about picking against our instincts and which would be better. And in this case, for Greg, and honestly for all of us, if we chose golfers we had zero faith in, we probably would have been better off this week.
How about Doug Ghim? Give me a top 5 to Doug Ghim.
Yeah. Matty Schmid, who's actually tearing through the FedEx Cup fall. We should have given him his.
There would have been reason to
we
pick.
need to talk about him because that boy is good. I'm in the process of putting up a post with a close up of his golf swing because it is heavenly, and he hits it well, man. And he's gone to that broom handle ish putter. It was always kind of his Achilles heel. I feel like he might be onto something.
Yeah, absolutely. He's gone T16, fifth, T3 in the FedEx Cup fall. He was outside the top 125, I believe. He might have been 125 entering the FedEx Cup fall. He's now 84th. And you know where he goes next? Bermuda, where his best finish before this week was at. So stars might be aligning there, Mark, in Bermuda for Matty Schmidt. Rest of the betting board. Loss, 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 loss. Let's get to the best bets, Josh. Oh, and what do you know? Rick had Neil Shipley top 20, loss. Patty Harrington to win, loss. Greg, Steven Yeager top 20, loss.
And missed the cut.
Do you see? You guys see why I've missed some of the Tuesday shows because I got the winning record and I'm just laying out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, you're done.
Done. One and done.
It's brilliant. It's actually brilliant now that I'm thinking about it. I might have to take this Tuesday off just to get the bad juju out. Yeah.
No. What's that rule that you taught me about? I can never remember its name. Where you just keep on
the martingale system.
Martingale. I need to write that down. Yeah.
Yes. Just keep on doubling and down and down and down again. Eventually it'll all go green. Okay. I think
how it works.
If you have a big enough bankroll, which I mean technically unlimited, CBS is putting up all this money for us in these best bets, I believe. And so
it's coming out of your salary, bro.
Oh, okay. That actually makes sense now that I'm looking at my paychecks. All right, Josh, let's get to the one and dones, which I think were kind of good this week. Perhaps.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, they were, because I'm no longer in last place. Greg, the new cellar dweller, Seamus Power, speaking of miscuts, you got another in one and done. $0 for you.
I was in second starting the week. Miscut. Every player I put in the sheet on Tuesday missed the cut. I'm mortified.
Just double down, Greg. Martingale.
Yeah, Martingale. Seamus Power next week. Rick and I had Kurt Kitayama. He got us 175,000, just about. Kind of wished for more, considering he was in the last trio there, but not the best final round. But still, not in last anymore, which is all right. Josh had Ari All, also 175K for him. And then Mark, still on top. Bo knows, Bo Hostler, 65K for the top dog.
Yeah, it's just nice to not be on the wrong side of the leaderboard. I hadn't even paid attention to this stuff-ish because I hadn't been on the shows. I know Lucas played well last week for me. He finished third.
Mm-hmm.
And Bo almost, I don't want to say seemed too easy a pick. I figured more guys would have him because he looked awesome down in Jackson, Mississippi, naturally to the runner-up, and then played solidly in Utah. And I figured he's coming to a place here in Vegas where he's actually played well before. And so I was like, okay, this pick sort of makes sense. I did battle with Harry Hall for a bit because at this course, you always see the UNLV guys kind of play well because they play the golf course a bunch when they're in college. But Bo came through. So now it's a question of trying to figure out who's going to go well in Japan. My early leaning, I'm letting my cat out of the bag here, is Sungjae Im.
Oh.
And the reason
being, he's top 50.
Can't pick him. Can't pick him, pal.
Whiz. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to figure something else out. But
I'm gonna pick Colin Morikawa.
We were on a. Oh, that reminds me. I wanted to ask you guys something. We were on a plane back from Montreal. It's an early morning flight, and Sungjae and the boys have been at the party the night before, and so I bump into him in the airport for a 6 a.m. flight, and he's like, "Hey, Mark," I'm like, "How are you?" He goes, "Tired." I'm like, "When you playing again?" He goes, "Zozo, excited." I was like, "All right, what can you?" I got 2 words: Zozo, excited. I saw a post. I'm going to find it here. If you can humor me for just a minute, why don't you vamp while I'm looking for Golf Digest?
Okay.
All right.
I could see Sungjae being, and we're obviously projecting here, a guy who could sneakily drink you under the table on the international team. Guy who kind of gets after it.
Well, he doesn't drink very much because he's constantly doing that Gangnam style dance. So He's going to have to do it with a drink in his hand. Okay. Golf Digest put up this thing that I found not fascinating, but it caught my eye. All right. It was percentages and there were comparisons. This looked like a Kyle Porter post, to be honest with you. It was like, who wins more next year? We polled our followers, and these were the results. So between Ludwig and Rory, who wins most next year? Do you think the followers or the fans picked?
Rory.
Wrong. Ludwig, 54% over Rory's 46.
Wrong.
Yeah, and I feel like in the era of polls and voting, we're going to look at the percentages. All right, next. Victor versus Morikawa. Who wins the most? Or who wins? Yeah, who wins the most?
I would think Morikawa.
How much?
60-40.
Percentage of the fans supported him.
70-30. Morikawa.
64-36. Close. Scotty Scheffler versus Xander Schauffele. This is the one that caught my eye.
They went Xander.
They went Xander 55-45.
Hey, Josh, wrong.
Scotty.
They went Scotty?
84%.
Oh, wow.
84% of the fans went. All right. And
There's
then
some casuals, though.
We had Brasson and John Rahm.
Okay.
So Brasson and John Rahm.
Well, we're on social media, so I think they're going to give the nod to Bryson.
Yes, very good. And what was the percentage?
5% more for Bryson.
64-36.
Wow.
They don't rate Rahm at all.
Oh my
gosh.
And the final one was Homer and Jordan.
Oh gosh.
No votes.
What do you think?
I think
they
Homer.
went with Homer, yeah.
They went with Homer. 77% of the people voted for Homer winning more than Spieth.
Wow.
What are these folks watching?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a new era, Mark. It is a new era. Like a lot of these people, they don't know about pretty much all of Rory McIlroy's career. Exactly. All the new golf fans, like the COVID golf fans from that, they only know this Rory McIlroy who has come close to major championships and have never won one.
Well, did you see, was it Reince Priebus or someone there on one of the interviews talked about some guy choking as bad as Rory at the US Open?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
In political commentary. That's not good.
And as producer Josh points out, people are forgetting that Jordan's going to come back all fresh with a new wrist next year. No injury anymore.
Yeah, I think he's going to win the Masters next year.
Oh, there we go.
Best of it.
Very curious. Jordan's fascinating to me for that reason.
Yeah, I went into 2024 thinking it was going to be the most important season of his career, and that didn't work out.
Well, maybe it was. If he fixed the wrist and wins the Masters in 25,
it's a good way to put it.
You could still be right.
That is true.
And we need that after today.
Okay, well, let's do this. Sing it, and then I'll shut up. Given that KP, and we spoke about him, should be paying off my wine bet, a case of really nice wine. Who wins more next year between the two JTs, Poston or Thomas?
I'm going to say Justin Thomas.
So where does your Ryder Cup thing go now? Come on. Are you hedging your bets?
Well, they're both on the team.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. JT, Justin Thomas hasn't won since Southern Hills.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
I don't have great feelings about Justin Thomas.
I don't feel great about him, but his upside.
I feel great about Justin Thomas Poston.
Yeah. Can we combine them? Honestly, give JT's putter, and it's a whole different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now Scotty's got to watch out.
Yeah, that's a good question, Mark. I don't know. I think JT could just run into one, one of them. One of the JTs is going to run into one in 25. Final answer.
You should get into politics.
Without being a prisoner of the moment here, I will take the Postman.
There you go. Right.
I think he's going to end up playing in more non-signature events. Right.
Like he'll win the John Deere again.
3M would be great. Could be great for him. Wyndham. Events like that, I just don't see Justin Thomas. I don't see Justin Thomas playing in those.
Unless he has another average year and has to play in the Wyndham.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then he's not going to, is he going to win that? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a good point at that point. All right. We are lost in the JTs. So I think we're going to end it there. So for producer Josh, thank you kindly. First Cut After Dark. We appreciate your time and your skill on the ones and twos. That was Greg DuCharme at The Real GFD. You can find him on socials. And that is our celebrity guest, Mark Immelman, at Mark_Immelman. On the Mark Podcast. Subscribe, download, wherever you listen to the podcast.
Joel Damon on recently. Yeah.
Okay. Before or after the rules violation?
It was before.
Okay. Probably a good thing. Probably a good thing. McDonald. This was First Cut After Dark. We'll see you guys next time.